take us over to Facebook Live.
Okay, that's this recording here.
Almost there. If you like, you need to go. Oh, there we go. There we go. That's all done now. Hello, Kerry.
I'm going to change my name.
Are you going to change your name?
Because I can't.
Why?
Go. It had something else up there, so now it's got my name.
So you and I have known each other for a little while now.
Just a little while.
Just a little while, and it's no surprise to some people who will be watching. I mean, we're quite good drinking partners as well, aren't we?
Oh, you start with the biggest secret. Don't know what
yes, Kerry and I do enjoy the same wines. Not in vast quantities, but we do enjoy it. Obviously, to enjoy wine, not to get drunk or anything like that. We wouldn't do anything like that. Never in a million years. And we do like to have serious conversations as well about how we see our movement going and how we see it's gone. And I know that you've been involved for quite a number of years, Kerry, but would you like to explain how you became involved within the spiritual world, if you like?
Yes, sure. So now we've got the wine out the way, I could do with a glass. But yeah, absolutely. So for me, I've always lived in or around about Edinburgh. So I was born into a family who had no fixed religion. But I went to Sunday school with my grandmother, Church of Scotland. Every Sunday I used to go to church with her and go to Sunday school, and I loved it. I loved the community, I loved the singing, I loved the fact that everybody came together, and I loved the fact that everybody was friendly, and that there was a sense of purpose, and there was a sense of coming together. There was an understanding, and everything was based upon being good, being kind, being thoughtful and considerate, and it seemed to fit with me. I mean, I was only a very, very young child, but I remember the Sunday school teacher always saying, Kerry, stop asking questions. So I would always say, but why? But how? But why? So I was always told, don't ask questions, stop asking questions. But I was that child that was always curious, was always asking questions. Asked my mother. There's a story my mother tells people that we were on the top deck of a bus in Edinburgh, and I could only be about 4. And all the journey, I was saying, but why, Mum? But why? And the lady walked past and said, you know, you're the most patient mother I've ever seen. You've answered every question your daughter's asked with a sensible answer. And at that point, I think my mum and I just thought that was normal. But I've always had that curiosity. So I've always been working towards bettering and understanding, and the human psyche and the psychology and what makes people tick has always caught my curiosity. It's always generated something within me to find out more. So in 1996, I had my daughter, and I suffered some postnatal depression, which I didn't know it was that at that point. I just kept going. So I went back to work after 3 months and was in quite a serious accident that kept me off work for 3 months. And during that 3 months, I think the spirit world just jumped on the time I had, because I had really strange experiences. I sensed the spirit world, and everything I'd experienced as a child just came flooding back. And I think because I was in that space of being really insecure with my thoughts and not being quite sure about my emotional stability, it all just got a little bit too much. And I remember saying to my mum at that point, she's a complete non-believer. I just have a great imagination. And she said to me, you just need to go and get treatment. So I did. I went and got treatment, and I got better, but these things didn't go away. The sensing, the spirit world. When I was young, I used to think I had monsters under my bed. I now know they were children. But I used to, everybody might relate to going to the bathroom in the middle of the night and then flushing the toilet and running back to bed because you think something's going to get you. Because I knew there were people in the room. I understood there was something in the room, but I didn't know what it was. So this created that huge question in me of, okay, I either run away from this again or I do something with it. So little did I know there was an SNU Spiritualist church down a little lane in Dunfermline, which is where I lived then. So I went in there and I arrived to find this very intimidating man, smiling, albeit, but still intimidating at the door. And he on a Sunday night, and he said, welcome. I said, hi. And I slid past and I sat at the back of the hall. It was just a ground floor flat. And little did I know that he would be an enormous part in my life, still is, from the spirit world. Yes. And at the end of the evening, I had no clue what had just happened, but I was left with more questions. How did that lady know those things about the people? And why is she doing it? So these questions are coming back again. How? Why? How? And as I was walking out the door, this gentleman said, see you next week. And I said, oh, I don't think so. Next week I turned up and he said, hello. He says, nice to see you again. He says, hi, my name's Jock MacArthur. And that was my introduction to what became one of my closest friends and my mentor and teacher and inspirer and kind of bottom kicker as well, because he did a lot of that. But I didn't know it at that time. And I remember him saying, you'll come back, and you should maybe come to the awareness class on a Thursday. And I remember saying, our awareness class, awareness of what? And he said, come along and find out. So I did. And he just did such fabulous exercises that got my creative questions just flowing. The how, the why, how did I know that? Why did I know that? How do I feel that? Where do I feel it? And he worked through in such a way that my logical mind was able to follow it and make sense of it. So as it was making sense to me, I began to understand when I was working psychically, when I was feeling the spirit world coming in, and it seemed to just make more and more sense to me. He would do things like blindfold mediumship, he would do split links, he would psychometrize things. He loved psychometry. He was a trance and physical medium, so I sat for him for trance and physical for many, many years, and stories we couldn't share to begin with, because he always said, do not share anything that you gain from sitting in circle with me. It's a private circle and I want my work to remain private. And for the biggest part, it still is. But we've got tapes and videos of such. But I just became enthralled. He used to speak about the pioneers. He used to speak about the history of spiritualism. He used to talk about what spiritualism brought to the world, what the pioneers brought. He used to make us research the pioneers. That was our homework, and that was in an awareness circle. So all these questions began to get answered, but there were more questions being created, and it just fitted my curious mind. And that was my introduction to spiritualism. I moved about, I left Confirming Spiritualist Church because I had that sense of unease and just I needed something more. So I moved about, and then I was working from a community centre in Dunfermline with my day job. And in walks Jock and 5 others. And I said, oh, I hadn't seen him in about 2 years. And I said, what are you doing here? He says, oh, I'm setting up my own church. Spirit World said, set up another church, and that's what I'm doing. And he says, and I'm going to start it up in this community centre on Sunday, which was 6 days, because this was a Friday night. He said, are you on board? I said, absolutely. And I've never kind of left. Doc went to the Spirit World in 2012, and I took over as president then. And I have to give, I owe everything to him. There are the teachers that have come and gone, but he's been the biggest part of my life, and thank goodness for that, because what he didn't know in his little pinky, he knew more in his little pinky than I've known in all my time, I think.
And I know that I know because we've been to Dunfermline Ask, and it is a lovely feeling within that room, that building where you have these services. And I know that it's very community based as well, isn't it? So when people involve themselves and it feels like a family. And is that what he wanted?
Yes, he absolutely said that Dunfermline Ask would be a family, and anybody who would come to Sunday or an awareness circle or the development circle would become part of that family. And he always had a saying of, we attract all the waifs and strays, and the waifs and strays themselves become family. He always believed that nobody should ever be turned away. Everybody comes to a spiritualist church seeking something, whether it's being part of a community or having their questions answered. So Dunfermline Ask, thankfully, due to the internet and this wonderful thing called Zoom, we're able to actually reach more people than we were before. We're being able to touch people and encourage people to ask their own questions and to discover spiritualism in their own way. So Dunfermline Ask in some way has become exactly what Doc had wanted. He said Dunfermline Ask is a progressive organisation that will always move with the times and will always share the word of the spirit world and the spiritual truths of spiritualism. And that's what I've always kept part. Progressive, yes, we always have to move, but the 7 principles are core. It's the philosophy of what all spiritualist churches are about. It's the backbone of what we have as our philosophy. And he dedicated his life to spiritualism. He retired very early and did his life with spiritualism, everything. He could have been around the world. He chose not to. He chose to build up a church for the community and for anybody who came in the doors.
Yeah, and I know that there's still things in the centre that were Jock's, or they are in memory of Jock, or they are as a not a memorial, because that can be quite negative, but it isn't. But there's lots of things within that room that mean an awful lot because of Jock.
Absolutely. And the history that goes with it. Dunfermline Ask was one of the first churches. I went to speak at high schools. He contacted high schools saying, can we be part of your religious education and come up and speak about spiritualism? So there's me in 2007 going with my PowerPoint presentation in my laptop thinking, I've got a presentation here, but I'm not as understanding of spiritualism as Doc is. But he said, oh, you'll be fine, go do it. And so I did. I went around high schools talking about spiritualism. I remember the church paid for me to go on to the teacher training weekend at Arthur Findlay College. Oh my goodness, going back to 2006, maybe 2007. I remember Vi Kipling saying to me, you could come on and go on to the list for teacher training. It wasn't 2007, it was 2008, because I'd just become a single mother with very few pennies and a daughter to invest in. I remember saying to Vi, I can't. I have nobody to look after my daughter. I have no money I can spend. And Jock saying, you did what? You said no. And I said, it's not what I want. I mean, maybe now it'd be different, but at that time, we go back to getting through life. Life just didn't open its doors to me at that point. But I know he took me in 2008, there was a demonstration at Perth Concert Halls, and he had this big banner above the door. Dunfermline Ask presents Kerry McLeod. I was like, you're joking. It just seemed surreal. And he said, this will not be the last. He said, I have faith in you. The spirit world have told me things, and I have faith in you. All you need is for you to have faith in you. So I did the demonstration of mediumship, quaking in my shoes, not even knowing what it was like from the congregation or the audience's perspective, but knowing when I came off, I felt invigorated. I just felt like I'd been with friends. I felt the power of the spirit world, and I felt the gratitude of the spirit world, but I felt my gratitude to them as well. It just seemed to be magic. And he said, that's why mediums work with the spirit world. He says, and never forget that feeling, because if you forget that feeling, there'll be other feelings you try and gain. Yeah. So don't ever lose that reason for working with the spirit world.
And I know, because I know you well enough, I know that you don't particularly enjoy the limelight. You certainly don't seek the limelight. I know that because I know you well enough, and I've seen where you've gone, no, I'll take a step back, somebody else can take a step forward. And obviously Jock saw that that's who you are, and that's what makes you even more likeable, because you don't want to be there at the forefront of everything. And you still do kind of shrink away. I don't know why, because you're an excellent medium and you have such a lovely way with people when you work with them. But I know that the real Kerry is quite a shy person. So, yeah. And I know that behind the scenes, before standing on a platform, if somebody could come along and offer you anything else and said, Kerry, do you want to come and do this? You go, do that, I won't be doing this. And yet there is an absolute joy to behold when you do step on the platform and you do work, because you can see the joy in people. So over the years, Kerry, have you learned to accept that this is your destiny?
I have to say yes. And it's with great honour that I say yes. And whenever I say that, I know it installs emotion in me, because I know I have been reluctant all the way. I've really not sought this. I have done churches and demonstrations and worked in Dunfermline Ask because I want to be with the spirit world and work with the spirit world, but it was never about anything other than being present with the spirit world. So absolutely. And I know that there has been a shift in me because of what's happened in the last couple of years. I know that in 2016 I handed my notice, and I used to be deputy CEO of a group organisation, and I handed in a 10-month notice to my CEO with an exit plan. I was setting up my own coaching company so that I could have more time to serve the churches and do demonstrations and to teach. And teaching is where I feel whatever other people seem to think, I love teaching, because that is teaching the mediums of the future, and that is imparting the knowledge and the spiritual truths of the spirit world. So I gave up my job. I dropped, I don't know, many pounds of income, but I knew I was doing the right thing. I didn't know why, but I knew it was the right thing. And in 2017, I met somebody, you might have heard of him, Phil Dykes. And I met,
Yes.
I actually knew him and worked with him before, but we met each other in 2017 when we were working together again. But my daughter had gone to university, so I had come to the conclusion that I'd spent 9 years single and I might be ready for something. And he turned up and he was newly single. So it seemed that the spirit world was kind of pushing us together. And then as things have progressed, the spirit world have allowed opportunities to come to me, and every time an opportunity has been given to me, Doc's words roll through my mind. Do not pass over an opportunity that has been given by the spirit world. You don't have to take that, but if you don't take it, you'll never know what potential you could have. So it's always stayed in my mind. So when in probably about 2.5 years ago, I thought, I wonder if I'm meant to work more with the spirit world. My coaching business and clients were going down and down and down. And suddenly the spirit world, my private readings were picking up. Working abroad was coming onto the horizon. Phil and I were talking about setting up the Spirit and Soul Foundation. And all through that, I wanted just to run away, because I didn't think I was good enough. I didn't think my place was to be that. I thought it would take over my life, and I wasn't sure what my part in that would be. But I'm so glad Doc's words kept on going through my mind, because I've never been happier. I'm in a relationship. I'm working with the spirit world, and I have to say that joy of doing a private reading or doing a demonstration and knowing that the spirit world have joined you and that you've made a difference, even in a tiny way, there's nothing like it. There really is nothing like it. So although I don't want it, part of me would not exist now if I didn't work with the spirit world, because it's intrinsically part of who I am now. I can't explain it any other way. I don't know if I've explained that properly.
I think if you were a stick of rock, it'd say medium all the way round, wouldn't it? You know, and run through. So you're now doing what? Well, it is your destiny. It's not so much a job but a vocation, isn't it? Because it's very up and down, and who knew what was coming come March this year for us all, and how life would change. But I know that for you and Phil, you adapted, you worked very hard to adapt to that situation, as almost as it came along, you just went with it. Mm-hmm. And I know that your home has changed because of where you are right now. And so how do you feel? Because there is this conversation about, well, when we go back, what are we going back to? What is it going to be? Line stuff. We can't lose that now either, can we? So what are your thoughts about that, Kerry?
I don't think we'll ever get back to what we called normal before. I think there will always be, there's always going to be something new. And I think we need to adapt gradually back. Coming into this way of living was a shock to all of us. I remember me saying, oh, for goodness sake, it's not that bad. We're not closing the church. We are not closing the church. We're closing the church. Because just at the time when the community needed the church more than ever, we were cutting off something. People were frightened, they were reaching out for something. I don't think people realise that when you're involved in a spiritualist church, the amount of, I'm using pastoral work in the widest sense, but we've done so much pastoral work for people who are on low incomes, in households that are dysfunctional before lockdown and incredibly dysfunctional just now, and in some cases horrible to live in. Doing private readings for very, very minimum donations. This is what the world that people have worked their way through. So to then go back to thinking that we're going to be able to get 40 or 50 people sitting in a church for a divine service just seems a little bit out of reach at the moment. I hope we do get back to there.
Yes.
But it just seems a little bit out of reach, because I know a lot of our own congregation are all vulnerable in terms of health. So a resistance to wanting to sit in a place where there's a possibility of them being at risk might not lift for some time. So we've done our best to do as much as we can online. We've got ways that we reach out to people to help teach them how to do online, Zoom, Skype, all sorts of internet. Apps, even WhatsApp is a milestone to some people. But I think there's something there that we need to capture, because I know that people have said that in times of need, the spirit world has the greatest opportunity to share spiritual truths and to support people. But we also have to be very mindful of how the world has changed as well. But I do think there's an opportunity for spiritualism or spirituality to make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
But spiritualism won't fit everybody in terms of a religion. But I think there's an increasing amount of people that are looking for something, and it has to do with spirituality. And if we can capture that spirituality, and I know some people might say that isms, whether regardless of what religion it is, when you put an ism onto it, it loses some of the essence of what was integral to its ethos in the beginning. I wonder if we can bring some of that spirituality back, go back to healing, go back to what mediumship is about, focusing on the living, bringing comfort, bringing support, bringing guidance, bringing that philosophical support to people. People are hungry to understand the world. They're hungry to understand what's happening, and they're hungry to find out more. I can't be the only person whose questions go round and round. Why? How? Why? How? There must be more people out there that have these questions going on in their mind. And I think I studied at Edinburgh Uni to do counselling and psychotherapy, and then studies as a coach, in my hunger to understand human psychology. And I think if we can blend those two, the healing and the spirituality, then we can help people develop themselves and unfold and nurture that seed that's planted. Because COVID-19 has actually taken mediumship to people who might not ordinarily have been able to access it. And if we can then nurture that, because we're coming up to a period where people might begin to go back to the shops, go back to their friends, go back to their churches. What happens to those we've reached online that are nowhere near a church, or they don't know about a spiritualist church in their area, or a little bit nervous yet about going out into the churches? There's a new group of people that I believe the spirit world can make a difference for. And in many ways, I think you and I and everybody else that's out there that takes that learnings of the spirit world, the spiritual truths, the philosophy, the understanding, the healing, and the spirituality of spiritualism, we can capture something special in people. So I don't know what it will look like, but it will look like however we invest in. I think we've got a great opportunity to invest change here and to allow the spirit world to have their voice within the confines of the restrictions we find ourselves in. But I do believe it's time for change, not to discount what's gone before, but to actually take on what has gone before and learn and adapt. Spiritualism has adapted, spiritualism has made change over the centuries. It has installed change, and I think there's an opportunity here to allow another movement to begin, for change to happen in the minds of those who are just awakening to the possibility that when you die, you're not dead. Then there's a something there that we can make a difference for, that then create the mediums, the philosophers and the teachers of tomorrow. And if we don't capture that somehow, there's going to be a great something missed.
There is, and that's going back really to the origins of awareness. When I first sat in awareness, it had nothing to do with mediumship on its own. It was about being aware of self and about being aware of others and about the experiences that we've had, how that shapes us into who we are, and of everybody who we meet from that day forwards. And I think that within spiritualism or spirituality, that is something that after, I don't think the world has known such great loss for so long as we have and are experiencing. And I don't think there'll be a family who won't know somebody that this has affected in some way. And at your organisation at Dunfermline, there is, I feel, an emphasis to begin with where healing is concerned anyway.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
So for us to eventually open, eventually we'll open, but that really the healing is going to be just wonderful, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. You broke up a little bit there, Kath. I think what I'm capturing is about when the church is open, about the necessity for healing completely and absolutely. I think spiritual healing is the most misunderstood part of mediumship, or in terms of spirituality. And for me, it's as an approved healer within Dunfermline, I know the quality of healing that can be given, whether it be one-to-one and in person, or whether it be to do with distance healing or the absent healing. I think there is a great opportunity for us to offer healing out, and I know that there has been fantastic healing opportunities online that have been given, with people coming together and grouping together to send healing at certain times of the day, regardless of which time zone we're in. But I think healing, if we remember that healing is the fundamental foundation on which spiritualism and mediumship is based, whether it be the healing of the physical person left here, or the healing that's allowing the spirit person to forgive, move on, allow, progress, develop. Healing is profoundly important. And if we allow people to understand what healing gives, because in terms of mediumship, people think that people either private readings or on a platform, but they don't really always see the healing that goes on within the intention of the medium. Because whenever I'm working, my intention is, allow me firstly to communicate that which needs communicated. But it's always in that prayer of seeking that healing essence to be shared, whether it just be from the spirit world or whether it be from a loved one. It's that healing essence of the divine, of God, whatever your God is to you, is allowing that healing essence to be shared to those that need it most. Now, it's not a band-aid. You can't put it on and say, you're all better now. I wish it were. But we know that healing works in many, many different ways, on many different levels. And we know that healing allows people to accept that which they can't change.
Yeah.
It's not always about getting better. Sometimes it's about acceptance. So if our churches can allow their congregation and the public to understand healing, then I'm all for that. And we need more trainee healers, we need more people sharing what healing is about. We need our churches, but in honesty, I think we need our churches to adapt a little bit and to move a little bit, just to be more spiritual. I think the spiritualist church still has a banner that some people find off-putting. So I wonder what healing and spiritualism will look like in, I don't know, 10 years' time.
Well, yeah. I mean, when we go back, it will be in healing circles, because there won't be any contact healing for a considerable amount of time, will there? And so it's got to be different. And I know that for many churches, their healers sit every day sending out absent healing for people. And so in that way, that I don't think that has changed very much, but I think the awareness of the healing taking place has definitely changed.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you weren't particularly keen at first to go travelling around to churches. I know that you love to be, your home is in Scotland, obviously, and you love the churches there, but you like what you know, and you know what you like. So stepping out of your comfort zone and having to rely on others, I know that isn't something you like to do. Your path really has been driven by you, and for all that, I know that you don't like the limelight and you don't like to have the light in your face, as it were. I know that you are also very organised, and when you set your mind to something, you are one hell of a determined lady. I know that from experience, which is wonderful. So has it been difficult over this period of time to carry on with that determination and motivation? Because, you know, your work schedule was very different to what it is now. Mm-hmm. So how knowing that you like what you know, how did you cope with that, Kerry? How would you advise other people to, you know, when their lives are turned upside down, as they have been, how do you cope?
Life has changed, and it's changed in so many ways for everybody and in different aspects of life. I mean, last year I spent majority of the year getting used to traveling and not being home, and this year I've spent most of the year adapting to being at home. And when 7 months of your calendar is wiped off, you're thinking, oh my goodness, I have no income. And I'm not looking for sympathy, because I know there's a lot of people out there really, really struggling through. But we had to look at, okay, first of all, do we still want to work for the spirit world? For me, that was my first port of call. Do I still want to? Is this me getting the opportunity to go back and do something else? So I had to revisit that, because without going fundamentally back to what your driver is, then you're going to fumble. I would have fumbled my way through. I decided that I definitely wanted to still serve the spirit world in any way I could. So we looked at the calendar. We decided we need to take something out to the people that allows them to access spirituality, spiritualism, the spirit world, and allows us to keep working with the spirit world. Because for anybody that works with the spirit world, when you don't have day-to-day contact and use your mediumship on a daily basis, it feels like you're on Mars. It feels alien. So we worked with people to bring out a Sunday gathering. Phil and I worked together to bring on I think we were one of the first to take online courses. I think within about 10 days of lockdown, we were working online. We had the calendar, we planned, we sent it out there, we contacted people and said, look, to keep your mind off the fact you're locked in your house, how about you join us? We kept prices reasonable. We kept the courses to what we knew, which was mediumship, and it worked. People turned up, we had waiting lists, we were working with the spirit world, we had more time within the home. I had time with my daughter. I had no time with my parents because we couldn't see them. Phil had no time with his family, but we stayed focused, and I think my determination to a point was what a couple of weeks in, what I stumbled over, because it wasn't happening in the way that I wanted it to happen. And then once again, I had to say, okay, I let go of what I think I need. Let's just see what happens. So I made sure I was sitting with the spirit world. I made sure, because working online is different to working in a church or a centre and a theatre. So my mediumship did a very quick change, and I knew I needed to get back in contact with the spirit world, sitting with them, allowing them to just get me confident to a point where my mediumship could work online as quickly as I needed it to. So my determination drove me, my confidence in what I could achieve drove me. I have to say, I questioned myself as a medium at times, but I think that's only natural, because we have to keep checking in the spirit world if this is what they want. If they don't want this, then it ain't going to happen. If we can't force this work to happen. But it did, it took place. Now it's second nature, as is for a lot of the population around about the world, to be looking at the screen and looking at a camera and looking at somebody in a box. So it is, I'm not saying it's normal, but it's feeling more natural. And in some ways, I actually think that those that learn to demonstrate their mediumship properly through Zoom and through online, using their mediumship, I think the quality of mediumship should increase when lockdown is lifted a bit and we get back to our churches, because we've had to really focus our mediumship in a way that we can't take a minute to find a recipient. Not that we ever would, but if it happens online, you've got 50 faces all looking bored. It's a different world. So I think something's come out of it. We're reaching more people, but our mediums are being taxed and tested and pushed and challenged. And I think in some ways, mediumship might benefit from it. In some ways, I know in others it has had a detrimental effect. But I hope in some ways our mediumship, the standard increases.
Yeah. I think it's just very, very different, isn't it, to what we've always known mediumship to be. Standing on a platform in a church and looking out is very different to seeing people in their living rooms, in their dining rooms, in their kitchens,
their beds,
sitting eating breakfast. What's the strangest thing? I know you won't reveal any names, but what do you think's the strangest thing you...
Well, it can be really disconcerting when somebody picks up their computer and walks around the room. It gives you a bit of seasickness because one of the little boxes in the screen's moving. And if you've got a few people doing that, you just have to look away and say, oh my goodness, okay. We've had dogs barking. I was given a contact to somebody and she was holding a baby at the front door outside because somebody inside wasn't wanting to listen to the contact. I gave a contact to somebody it wasn't for her, but the plumber in her house said that he could accept it. It's like, oh, okay.
Okay.
So in that way, we're probably reaching more people and creating that seed
Yes.
of that question about that started me on my journey. How and why? How
Yes.
is she saying that and why? So maybe the seeds are being planted, but I know that there is something good to come out of this, because it's the only way I can look at it. If we don't look at things with a positive way and move with the times, we quickly become outdated and old-fashioned and stuck in something that doesn't work, or resistant. Worse still, those people that say, oh, I can't do it, I'm not doing it, I'm waiting. We can't. We have to embrace it. And it's so good to see churches and organisations embracing change and taking teachings and mediumship and healing out there to the masses. It is fabulous.
It is. It is. It isn't easy if there isn't many of you to do it, because it relies on one or two, and you do need more than one or two. I understand that.
Absolutely.
Only too clearly myself. But it's nice to be able to tune in to such a variety of things that are online now. I think in that sense that it has been a positive view. Scotland is different. I think you've got less cases than we have anyway.
Yeah, at this time, but I know that as we go back to our churches, I still remember the first time I served at Longton. My knees were knocking. I remember you coming and putting the microphone on me and me saying, I don't want to do this, I can't do this, I don't want to do this.
Yes, you did.
Enough. Now, we're going. And in fact, I think at that point you said, right, let's go.
Yes. When you first you'd eaten your hand, you didn't want any drink, and you felt really, really anxious about coming onto the platform. So yes, it's the best way to do it, is to just say, come on, and we're going on.
It's a fabulous place, so it is. I know it's not the original church, but there's so much of the original church instead, in terms of history, in terms of the feeling that's there. And I know that it's moved from Gordon Higginson through Paul through to yourself. It's just, there's such a magnificence about it. And I think I let it get the better of me to some extent, because I'd made this big thing in my head, and it's not that it isn't, but I let it get bigger than the work I was there to do. And if I could say to anybody, always respect the spirit world and where you're working, but don't let it get the better of you, because I got lost in that moment instead of being within my own presence, being within the presence of the spirit world, and remembering what I was there to do in this magnificent place. So I remember saying to myself, now don't drown in that place, don't drown, oh, you're drowning.
Well, it didn't look like that. It may have felt like come across in that way at all. And of course, I think, where are we? With July, I think you were due to be with us soon, which of course can't take place either. But you know, of all the places that you've been to, and as you said last year, you were away more than you were at home. I'm sure your daughter will be pleased that you're probably going to be home for her birthday this year.
Yeah, and the thing is, I'll be home for her birthday, but she's heading back to uni, so she'll be away. Fingers crossed, not that she'll be away, but she's hoping to get away. She's going back to uni to become a paramedic. So she's the one bird. I've missed her birthday for 2-3 years now, but yeah, it will be different to be at home this year.
It will. So your Spirit and Soul Foundation, are you building on the teaching, going out, traveling more? Is that what you want to do?
I think there needs to be a balance. We've now built our office, so it's a glorified shed. We call it our office. So for the last 3 weeks, we've been building this glorified shed whilst trying to keep normality in our work. So what we've done is the Spirit World gave us the impression that we needed to allow ourselves the freedom to have a different working place. So we've done that. We've invested a lot of what we had in our savings and some of what we'd earned during the early part of lockdown online to build this place, so we can have that separation between where we're working and where we're eating and socialising with Ashley and family. But the Spirit World have given the impression that we need to leave things open. So I think there might be a mix of online, and as we come out of lockdown, we might be in Europe more towards the end of the year if we get anywhere. But who knows? The way it's going, we need to be really flexible, because I know in England it's not pleasant what's happening again, and it's so sad to see what's happening. So we don't know if that will happen in Europe again. So we are ready to get on the road and take courses back out there, share the word, teach the teachings, bring the presence of the Spirit World and some of the philosophy of the Spirit World and the history of spiritualism out there. We're fighting at the bit to get back out there face to face with people. But if we can't, we will be here. We'll be doing this, because we really want to expand the type of training we're doing, which is encompassing the personal development alongside mediumship. It seems to have worked last year. People seem to enjoy it. Enjoy it's maybe too much. They benefit from it. They might not enjoy it whilst they're in it, but they've had so much feedback saying because it's different, it allows them the opportunity to have a look at what's going on in that moment. So we're probably going to expand on that kind of training, but we're really focused on allowing every single person to be individual. I know we need to learn the formal training. I know we need to know the framework and the mechanics, but let's allow people to find out who they are first. Allow them to find their authentic voice, their own point of view, their own opinions, their own sense of what they need to bring before we start giving them a framework, because that's where we find that people begin to represent or do things that look similar to other people, because they haven't found who they are first before they started developing their mediumship. So once they find out who they are, then they can start training themselves how to use what the Spirit World's giving them. But there's a whole lot of yumminess that comes from finding out who you are, and I think that's what allows us to really get a pleasure out of what we're doing. It's not about hand-holding, it's about empowering, it's about educating, it's about guiding and supporting. There's a difference between that and pandering and mummying and hand-holding. It is facilitating, but it's not about doing it for them. It's about saying, okay, what's happening here? What's this? What are you noticing? What is that telling you? What do you want to do with that? And it seems to be working. So it might be how, if we can have more of this type of training, then that's great, because people are responding to it, and it's taking the focus off I want to be a medium back onto where it used to be, I suppose, which was developed by self first. And I know we can never take that destination of wanting to be the medium, because for some it really is a heartfelt calling for them. But there's no shortcut, there's no fast track, there's no way that they can get there without doing that inner work. So if they can do that fundamentally at the beginning, I spent the best part of 4 years with Jock, and he didn't take me anywhere near the spirit world. He taught me about psychicism, he taught me about history, about philosophy, about psychometry, about understanding myself, understanding others, feeling other people's emotions as I worked psychically, and then feeling the impact of what that meant for me. And every time my life went through a change, I noticed that my development helped me work through that. But there might be that drive for people to get there that bit quicker. I really think they're doing themselves a disservice. It really needs for us to look after ourselves and pay attention to what's happening. Because in our own soul, when we spend time in the spirit world, that's where we find out what we can bring. What part of our mediumship can we bring? And mediumship is vast. From art through to, well, we'll start with healing. From healing through to art, caring, doctoring, nursing, and that tiny bit in the middle that's about platform and private readings.
I was going to ask you, and you've already answered it really. So how does your experience and knowledge of coaching is to all of that really? And over the weeks that I've done this, I think without a shadow of doubt, every medium that I've out, the desperation for some to be a medium, the desperation to be on the platform, and we all know that that was not the case for you. You would have gone the other direction if you could have. The reluctant medium. And I think that one thing that all of these conversations has taught, should teach all of us really, is that before we can help anybody, we should be helping who we are to come to the fore, to develop, to heal ourselves, to nurture ourselves. So all the awareness groups that have ever been in the past were just like that, weren't they? They were to help to develop them, to understand what's happened to them and why they are where they are at that time. So maybe, Kerry, after all of this, maybe we'll go back to that. I know that's certainly what Mitch and I teach and help people to understand, is that that awareness is not just the awareness of the spirit world, is it? Because those who desperately want to be on the platform might get to be on the platform, but then burn out quite quickly, don't they?
Mm-hmm. And I think,
go on.
I think there's a real truth to that, Cass. I think there is, where we look at the mediums of the pioneers, they were never in a rush to get on the platform, and they went through major struggles. When you look at some of the challenges that these people went through so that we can do here, I mean, I'm sure had they been faced with this kind of change, moving on to technology, they would have done it with the passion and the purpose that they followed through in their own time. We had Estelle Roberts that went out and demonstrated while her child was severely unwell. She came back to find out the child would survive, but went away not knowing what the case was. We've got pioneers, we've got mediums that were locked up for their beliefs. We've got mediums that were imprisoned for their beliefs and their religious understandings. We've got people who gave up careers in order to work for the spirit world behind the scenes. We've got people who went from being in the public eye to pulling away to working with those at end of life, because that's what they wanted to do, because they realised that serving the spirit world was their purpose. And if we look at being in service, we can really get a touch when we know who we are and we know what we are. I've always known I was a teacher. I actually thought I'd be teaching corporate stuff. I've taught stuff to do with HR, I've taught senior managers, I've taught business plans, and that's where I thought I was going to be going. And then coaching, I've taught coaching, advanced coaching skills. So I always knew within me there was that lust to share understandings and knowledge. I never would have thought I'd be teaching outside my own development circle in the church that I'm part of. Never would have thought that. But yet I love it. I get lost in it. Just there's this something that happens when I feel the spirit world coming in, and I get all excited. And I know some people love demonstrating. I know Phil loves demonstrating, and I do too. But we have to know within our own souls what part of us is about. For me, it is about the sharing of knowledge, the having that philosophical nature that allows me to pose questions in others, that allows me to create that curiosity in others, that allows me to touch a spark of something within somebody that then makes them go and look at the websites or research pioneers or find out about spiritualism in the States or Europe or Britain. There's something there that I know we can bring, and that's what makes it magical, is that none of us are the same, and we all know our own strengths. We know that mediumship, you'll know yourself, mediumship on a global stage, that's maybe not the right word, can be a place where there can be a bit of competition from churches and outwards. But if we fully appreciate that we bring our own something, then there's a something that we can bring without needing to be fearful or threatened or at all feel compromised in any way, because there is enough people on this planet, 7.5 billion of them, more in the spirit world, that we can touch with the word of the spirit world, that we can share in our own way. And I think that's why becoming authentic is really important, because if we don't know who we are and we don't know how we're going to deliver it and we don't know what our purpose is, we think we're in competition with the next person, whether it be that person did 45 services that month and I only did 42, or that person travelled to that place and I only did this place. There's enough of everything if we truly know what we're bringing, if we truly see what we're adding to what the spirit world wants. But it has to be the spirit world that chooses it. We have to know what the spirit world wants from us, which means we've got to be in touch with our own soul. We've got to be in the power of the spirit enough for us to at least get an indication of, no, that's not right. We all have that inner sense of what our purpose is, but it sometimes doesn't match what we want. I want to be a healer. Oh, no, you're going to be on the platform. I want to be on the platform. No, you're going to be a healer. We're never happy. It's like having straight hair when you want curly. We're never happy.
And I know you've got lovely curly hair, which you pull at instead of embracing it. You've not been able to get into the hairdressers, or have you done it yourself?
My daughter has. Oh, you're frozen, Kat.
I think most people have tried it over the last few weeks. It looks fab. It looks absolutely wonderful to me anyway. And I know that on a Sunday you started on a Sunday with the gathering, and it has gathered momentum. The Sunday gathering, and I know that it's seen worldwide, isn't it? And then it's like it has the domino effect where it's shared, and then people tell other people, and then other people want to watch. And I take it you'll be working tomorrow night, or you'll be serving tomorrow night.
Mm-hmm.
You will be.
Yes.
Okay. So are you having any time off at all during this lockdown?
Funny you should say that. We actually had a conversation, and we were looking at the calendar, and a lot of our work, I think I said earlier, is for free, because at this time, you'll know yourself, and I know there might be people watching this that are outside the UK, but within the UK, there's a lot of people being furloughed in their jobs, and now are being made redundant and paid off. So we know there's people that do not have an income just now. So it's really important for us to do things for free. So we've got the Sunday service, we do a Let's Talk Mediumship on a Tuesday night, which is a question and answer. We actually did that for our students going pre-COVID times, but we've opened it up to the public. And we do some other stuff behind the scenes that are more of a pastoral, and it doesn't really need mentioned, but we're looking at the calendar, looking at the end of July, and we've got a couple of pieces work in the evenings, and we thought, what if we just blocked out the daytimes and had some time off? But what happens is we will be looking at replenishing ourselves, taking stock of ourselves. We do still sit for the spirit world, but not as regularly as we would like. We'll get back into the habit, touch base, check in, and maybe start thinking about what the end of the year and beginning of next year might look like. Because if we do this without the spirit world, we're on a hiding to nothing. So we need to really stay in touch with, not that we're prophesying or telling the future, but it's more a sense of, for instance, November, December last year, Phil and I talked about, I wonder whether we should do some online classes, and I wonder if we should start developing. So January and February, we had about 7 online classes sitting on the shelf, not knowing when they were going to be ready for. And then lockdown, March happened, and we think, we've got courses here ready to go. We've got the means, we'll find out how to work Zoom. So in that way, we had no clue why we both felt this push to develop online courses. And there you go, it's there. And I know that Spirit World worked that way with many different people. Whether it is in mediumship, or whether you are working in the catering business or the caring business, whatever it is, you might find synchronicities that you weren't aware of before, that afterward you thought, if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have done that, and I wouldn't have done that. And I think if we're aware and in touch of those synchronicities, because Jung captured that phrase, he invented the phrase synchronicity, where he said coincidences that come about for the betterment of one person. If we start looking at that, then we can get in touch with what the spirit world wants. We can drive it, we can have ambition, we can have determination, stubbornness, Phil might call it. We can have that persistence in nature, but we have to check in, 1, on the moral compass, and 2, do the spirit world want this? Is there a need? And that's about being in service. That's not about doing what makes money, doing what will get you the limelight, doing what you think will increase your, whatever you want to increase, likes on Instagram or something. It's about doing what the spirit world wants. And it seems that lockdown has maybe brought more people in touch with what they need to be in touch with, and really made people look at how they're delivering, taking people, we've had a lot of time on our own in our own homes to do that reflective practice and to think, why am I doing this? What am I doing it for? And who do I want to be assisting? And then maybe people have changed. Maybe you've had a look at what you're doing and thought, you know what, corporate world's not for me anymore. Maybe I need to move more into something that assists others. Or this job isn't fulfilling me. Maybe I need to start looking at what fulfills my passion, or maybe you found a hobby that you've really found that when you're doing it, you lose track of time. I think lockdown in some ways has offered people the space and that time. It's come with challenges, and we know there's some awful things happen to people, and we know that it's been a horrible experience for many, many people. And I know as a I was going to say, yeah, celebrant, doing funerals through this time, Kath, has been a challenge for you, because we've spoken about what that's been like for you and what that's been like for the families. And there has to be good that comes out of this. There has to be something positive. There has to be a silver lining.
There does. There definitely does. In terms of funerals, you know, we'd spoken about, do we say to people, if you would like some sort of a memorial ceremony, or just a getting together with your family and do something, we can do that. But as time goes by, it makes me think, will they want to revisit that again? After all these months, will they really want to revisit that? You know, a lot of families have said, oh, when this all over, we'll get together and we'll really celebrate. But it does make me wonder whether they'll be able to do that, because that's in some ways just bringing everything back again, isn't it, to the fore? Not that you shouldn't, you know, we all need to go through that grieving process, but I also feel that in some ways, for some families, that just won't be the way to go forward. And dealing with grief is part of, well, within spiritualism is about life, but often people, because of a past.
I missed that, Kath. You froze. Sorry.
It's all right. I'm looking at your bar and it keeps going red, and then it goes yellow, and then you freeze.
But I think
Plugged into the Ethernet cable. So, but in terms of the future, yes, it has already been different. It's going to be different, but I feel that part of what was and part of what is must come together. You know, there's nothing wrong with online services once we're back within our centres and churches.
I think there'll be a very real need from people to have that something that's there, because we are going to have people that, for instance, are shielding right now still, are not going to want to go into their churches. And we know we've got some of our congregation that are shielding, and they're shielding until the 31st of July at the latest, but who knows? So we know that the Sunday gathering was started between another organisation and Dunfermline for the purposes of taking a divine service out to the public. I know it's changed as we've moved on, but the essence of it is about reassuring people that they have something to go by. The amount of messages we've received from people saying, you know, when the service stops on a Sunday, it's like the next Sunday is my next goal. It's the next benchmark. I just get through day by day by day in order to sit and enjoy a Sunday service. And we've had people say they didn't even know there was such a thing. They thought Sunday service was very churchy. And they love the songs, they love the philosophy. And what I miss is doing a church service and doing the address maybe once a week, twice a week, being able to do philosophy and an address specifically about the pioneers, about spiritualism, about where we came from, where we're going to, creating debate, creating a stimulus for conversation. I actually miss that. I miss that interacting with people when you go to a church and you've travelled 3.5 hours and you do your service, and this is not Longton, by the way. You get a cup of tea and a biscuit, and you travel your couple of miles and a couple of hours back. I miss it. I miss that socializing. I miss finding out. I'm mixing with other spiritualists. I mean, my first time to the AFC was, I don't know, way back in 2009, 2008, maybe even before that. It was a JV Trust Week, and the church asked if I could go to the JV Trust Week. And it was a wonderful week because it was spiritualists that were there, and they were all from the churches. And it was not about wanting to be a medium. There was no competition. There was no needing to show. It was just a whole lot of spiritualists loving sitting in the presence of the spirit world, having fun with the spirit world, trying to do some mediumship, and having a lovely time. And I think that's what part of mediums that serve our churches, I think that's part of it, is that community of keeping in touch and allowing us to be in the presence of what our religion is about. What spiritualism is about is the community that our pioneers have worked very, very hard for us to have.
Yeah, they have. They have. And you know, when you said to me, I don't know what I'm going to talk about, it's now 10 to 9. And I knew that you would be fine, and it's been so lovely. I'm going to say good night to Facebook. Just a second. Good night, Facebook, and thank you all for tuning in this evening, and thanks to Kerry. That's it. And I'll stop my recording. I've stopped recording now, and we're not on Facebook now. I've got to tell you, I don't know if your connection to the internet is, because it kept going. Your bar kept going red. It's gone red now.
I think that's yours, Kath. Yours is going yellow and red.
No, I've got the Ethernet cable in, so I'm not even on Wi-Fi. I'm doing it the old-fashioned way.
Well, we'll have a look. We're on the Ethernet as well. We've trailed a cable.
Are you Wi-Fi, Kerry?
No, we're Ethernet.
We're Ethernet? How strange. You kept freezing, you see, and then it caught up with itself.
Oh, well, hopefully something has got out there.
Yes, definitely. I can see Sophia and Dave. I'll mute you. I don't know, and I'll mute Mitch. They're still muted. Oh no. Hi.
I have enjoyed this so much. Thank you for letting me sit with you and listen. It was great.
Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Very much.
Where are you joining us from, Sophia? Where are you joining us from?
Budapest, Hungary.
Oh, lovely.
And I go to the gatherings every Sunday, the Sunday gatherings online, and love them. And I'm really enjoying all of this online. Thank you so much for what you're doing, both of you.
Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it.
And while it froze every now and then, I could still hear everything. It did catch up out here.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Oh, right, okay.
There you go, you see.
Are you still recording, or is that me that's recording, Kath?
That's you that's recording.
Okay.